Hello, picture if you will. A match strikes, a cigarette glows, Elvis humming faintly in the background, maybe in the room, maybe in the building, maybe just in somebody's mind. Today, we are diving back into a love story that shouldn't work, but absolutely does. A story about a comic book kid who falls for a call girl with a heart of gold, inadvertently steals a suitcase of cocaine, and then decides it's probably best if they skip across the country for new adventures. This is True Romance, Tony Scott's neon-soaked fairy tale, Quentin Tarantino's first proper screenplay, I shall say, and a movie that reminded an entire generation that romance can be messy, violent, delusional, and still weirdly beautiful. So strap in. We're talking shootouts, Rastas, Sicilian monologues, Elvis apparitions, and a couple who love each other so much that they make terrible decisions look poetic. This is the Moviescramble podcast. So today I am joined by two people on the podcast. First of all, I am joined by Mary, our regular collaborator. How are you doing, Mary? You all right?
I'm really well, and I'm honestly just thrilled that we made it through an intro where I wasn't the butt of a joke. So awesome.
Wouldn't do that to you, and I wouldn't do that to our podcast guest today, Vanessa White, podcaster. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Very good. Well,
Smashing.
That's actually that's not completely true. I've had a rubbish week. I have got a glass of wine in my hand, but I'm very pleased to be here and chatting about my favourite movie.
I was going to have a beer on hand, and then I thought probably doesn't project the right image of sitting early Friday evening before actually having my dinner and just sitting here with a beer. But I thought, no, I could possibly get away with it. So, as you've probably guessed from the intro, today we are talking about the 1993 Tony Scott film True Romance. It stars Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, with Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Brad Pitt, Christopher Walken, and James Gandolfini. The film is the choice of our guest Vanessa because this is the Collab podcast where we are speaking to podcasters, writers, other types of film people about the film that ignited their love for cinema. So, Vanessa, when did you first see this film?
So, I think it would have been when I was probably in my late teens, maybe 20. I saw the Sicilian scene before I saw the movie because my little brother used to buy Empire and Total Film absolutely religiously when we were kids. And one of the Empires he had this video with it that had all these like iconic scenes on it. So it had a scene from Goodfellas, there was a scene from Blade Runner 2001, bizarrely the scene in Gremlins where Phoebe Cates talks about her dad dying as Santa Claus, which is a slightly weird inclusion. And then it had the Sicilian scene. So I think I saw that on this video and was like, oh my God, what the hell's that? Like, I have to see this movie because it was just like, I'd never seen anything like it. And I probably at the time wouldn't have even known really who Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken really were, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But I don't know exactly. It's not one of those movies. I mean, I never saw it in the cinema because I was like 9, I think, when it came out. So it's not one that I've got like a memory of actually going to see it at the cinema, but I'm pretty sure we rented it from the local video shop and I just loved it from like the first watch, which would have been like late teens, which would have put it in early 2000s, maybe something like that. Nice. I find it really difficult to think about time because I always think like the 90s were like 10 years ago. Do you know what? So I find it quite hard when I'm trying to think of these kinds of things. But yeah, so it would have been around that time. But I definitely saw that scene on this video. And of course, this video, when we got it, was just amazing as well because it had all these cool scenes from movies in it. And that was back when like things like Empire. I mean, I know Empire still exists, but I don't think it's got quite the following it had like back then.
Yep. They're not exactly a rival podcast to ours because they've just celebrated 700 episodes and they've been...
We'll get there.
You're right.
We'll get there.
Yeah. One way or the other, yeah. We may have to just start making 1-minute podcasts, but we will get there. Yeah. So, Mary, when was the first time you saw this particular film?
So I can say that my husband introduced me to this film, and I remember we were having a DVD clear out because we'd moved in together, and I discovered that he had 3 Danny Dyer films, which I was considering leaving him for, if I'm being completely honest. And then he said, I'm going to show you this film, and it's a love story. And I thought, well, that's definitely not one of yours then, because he doesn't watch like rom-coms or anything like that. Sat down to watch it, and I did the Leo DiCaprio meme. I was pointing at the telly every 5 minutes going, oh my God, that's so-and-so or whatever. And then I realised as I watched it that I had seen Gary Oldman, like, or stills of Gary Oldman in costume as this character, but I didn't quite understand the context of, you know, the film, etc. But I completely fell in love with it on first watch. It's very sort of like pulpy. It feels really retro, even though obviously it's set in the time that it's shot. And I love the cast of characters. I love the fact that you've got all these big names that are willing to come in and do like 1 or 2 lines, you know, just for the privilege of being in this film. And as someone who had the biggest crush on Val Kilmer as a child, because I saw Batman when I was a wee girl, Val Kilmer as Elvis ticks every single box I need as a woman. Like, let me tell you, even though you don't get to see much, I'm like, yeah, this is doing it for me. So yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It was maybe within the last 10 years, but this is one of my husband's favorite films. So, and for him to share that with me and for us to have that nice experience together of watching it and really enjoying it, I think is something that's pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely. I saw it at the cinema when it came out because, well, I'm really old, so that's kind of, it was kind of around about the time. I was very much into Quentin Tarantino at the time. Reservoir Dogs had come out, and this had come out after it, but you could not see Reservoir Dogs apart from late night screenings, and it wasn't available on video and stuff at the time. So when this came out, actually on video cassette, there was a sticker on it. It said the first Tarantino to own, as a wee publicity thing as well, to try and boost it. Basically, because it was the first one. I watched it a couple of times around about then, and weirdly, I have never gone back to it for some reason until I watched it for this. So obviously, we'll have rewatched this as part of our preparation for the podcast. So Vanessa, what hits you differently this time watching it from previous viewings?
I haven't watched it specifically for this podcast because I've already watched it twice already this year. I watched this film, so I was like, I literally watch this film about 3 or 4 times a year, so I kind of figured that'll be fine. But the last time I rewatched it, which would have been probably about 2 months ago, it's my favourite film. This is really a stupid thing to say in a podcast where you're talking, but it's quite hard to articulate why it's my favourite film. I think it's just got everything that I love. It's got all these amazing performances, like Mary said. You've got people that are willing just to come in and do like one scene. Brad Pitt, I love. Christian Slater, I absolutely love. Gary Oldman's one of my favourite actors. It's got this like really sharp dialogue, but combined with the kind of like more kind of like actiony like direction from Tony Scott. I quite like, it's not really a road movie, but there is an element of that to it as well. And I think we'll probably come on to this, but I think because it's just like, it's like a fantasy, isn't it? Like, it's just like this fantastical story. And you tell people your favourite film's True Romance, and they'll roll their eyes and go, oh, that sounds like what Mary was saying, like a rom-com or whatever. And I'm like, no, seriously, you need to watch it. It's like got violence and drugs and everything and all the good stuff in it as well. It's not just like all the really mushy. And it's not even that mushy, but it's an authentic love story. And I think, I don't know why I love it so much, but it is my favourite film and I just adore everything. So every time I watch it, I love it. Although, as we'll come on to it, there are parts of the movie which, you know, looking at them through a 2026 lens are problematic for a couple of reasons. So I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but yeah, I could just watch it over and over and over again. I absolutely adore it.
I think I was more drawn to Patricia Arquette's character this time around, actually, because I felt like the first time I watched it, I maybe found that relationship a little bit kind of saccharine and a little bit over the top. And I get that everything in this film's over the top, but I kind of maybe found her character a little bit more sort of like grating, whereas this time around, I just felt really like warm towards her and I felt really like protective of her as a character. And although it is a very like hyper stylized, really messy romance, like I really bought into that more this time around as well. And I know that there's lots of like violence and drugs and everything else going on in the background. But I actually felt like strangely more drawn to the kind of romance element of it as well, and how much those two just clearly love each other, which I think is actually like a really, obviously the title of the film is True Romance, but it never kind of struck me the first time around that there was like a really good love story at the heart of this, and there definitely is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. For me, I was surprised by the fact that it's almost like 8 or 9 different wee stories that kind of follow on from each other, and each one of those could, if it was expanded, could have been a movie in its own right, because the characterization was so rich and everything. It kind of blew me away this time. I didn't remember it in that way because it was just kind of swept along with the story more than anything else. But having a wee chance to sort of delve into it a wee bit more, actually watching it with sort of a critical eye rather than just a fan eye, was something quite different. The film's identity, would you say it's very much a Tony Scott film, or a Tarantino, or a mixture of both of them?
I think it's a mixture, but I think if I had to go one way or another, I think it's more a Tarantino film than a Tony Scott. So I'm just thinking about Tony Scott's other, and I've not seen all of Tony Scott's movies, but I've seen like the big ones like Top Gun and Days of Thunder. And I mean, they're all very actiony type movies, and I think this is a wee bit more stylized than that, and I think that comes from Tarantino. Although I think it would have been a very different movie if Tarantino had directed it. Well, I know it would have been because there was an alternative ending and stuff. I think it would have been darker and less pacey, but I still think it's more Tarantino than it is Tony Scott, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think even just down to like the names of the characters and stuff like that, you feel like his fingerprints are all over this. But I think the Tony Scott influence is perhaps more of that narrative cohesion, as you said, John, like bringing all these different strands together, and they've all got their own sort of like set piece. Like there's so many standoffs that happen throughout this film, and there's that lovely blend of light and dark that I think that you get more from this. Whereas if it had been just a straight Tarantino film, you maybe wouldn't have got that sort of those lighter moments as well that do feel a bit more, I don't want to say mainstream because that feels a bit icky, but do you know what I mean? Like there's a lightness, a touch there that I think Tarantino tends to sort of shy away from in order to sort of keep his audiences uncomfortable, whereas I feel like Tony Scott maybe gives into that a little bit more. However, having said that, if you'd taken the Tony Scott title card off this film and said, can you have a guess at who wrote and direct this, Tarantino I think would be your guess, right?
Yeah, I would think so. It's soaked in the type of references that he brings into his films all the time. So yeah, I think somebody going in blind would say, yeah, it's a Tarantino film rather than anything else. But the glossy nature of some of it is more like a big budget Tony Scott type film. So yeah, there is a bit of a mixture there, but I think you're probably both right. It's more Tarantino than Tony Scott, but he obviously did an awful lot of work to make it less of a Tarantino film. Like he made it a more linear story and everything, because as with other Tarantino films at the time, the linear narrative was just not something he did. He liked to mix things up and all that. So it was kind of interesting. So the main characters here, Clarence and Alabama, or Bama as some people tend to call her. What do you think about the sort of chemistry? Do they work as sort of a real life couple, or is it more sort of tragic? And do you think it's possibly like Tarantino has taken his influences here from the likes of like Bonnie and Clyde, or even Terrence Malick's Badlands as well? What do you think?
I think I haven't seen Badlands, but I've heard that comparison made before, even down to the music. I think this is a fantasy, and I think Tarantino apparently wrote this when he was quite young, before he'd had a girlfriend, and I think Alabama is like his kind of fantasy. I suppose she's like the kind of manic pixie dream girl prototype thing, and so to me, it is supposed to be like a fantasy. I don't think you're meant to take it too seriously, but I think that that's how I would see it. I don't think I see it as like tragic, because I don't think it happens in the real world. Do you know what I mean? I think it happens in this like fantasy world. So like even if you think about the start of the movie when they're in Detroit, it's all quite dark and dingy, and then they go to California and it's all like bright colours. It's a wee bit like Wizard of Oz kind of thing, you know. All of a sudden, it's all technicolor and amazing. And so to me, I'm like, this is, and that's maybe how can give parts of it a little bit of a buy as well that maybe are a bit more problematic, because in my head I'm like, this isn't real. This is like Tarantino's fantasy. He's Christian Slater's character, Clarence, and Alabama is like ideal woman, and this is like the kind of relationship and the kind of caper that he would love to go on. So to me, I just see the whole thing as like a Tarantino early 20s fantasy.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I love the Wizard of Oz comparison. That literally has made everything click like in my head. That just makes so much sense. Like, I think that when they first meet, he's obviously like this kind of like more geeky and less streetwise, and she's immediately sort of like chaotic and has this kind of somewhat endearing energy, but like there's a kind of like thrill to it as well. And you're so right. This is like, ask a 20-year-old guy who works in a comic book store to describe his perfect woman. It's literally Patricia Arquette in this film, so that just makes so much sense. I mean, their chemistry is great as actors. Like I think they're perfect together, and their love story does feel like, although it is kind of fantastical, it feels quite real and quite messy and quite genuine. But yeah, that Wizard of Oz thing is going to stay in my head. That's like, this film now makes a lot more sense.
So, touching on Patricia Arquette's portrayal of Alabama, how do you think that she balances the sort of the innocence, toughness, vulnerability, and just the sort of the whirlwind of chaos that seems to follow her everywhere?
I think within that fantasy landscape, she does it really well. I think Mary's already touched on it. Like, you feel sorry for her, you're protective of her, but you don't feel sorry for her and like that she's a victim. It's just that she's obviously had quite a difficult time before her and Clarence get together. Apparently, that chemistry that they've got, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard it on a couple of podcasts that chemistry was real. Apparently, they were, I don't know how far it went, but like things like between them where Tony Scott said as soon as Christian Slater saw Patricia Arquette as Alabama, he basically fell in love with her. So I think there was some kind of, whether it went anywhere or not, the chemistry was very real. And I think that really comes out on the screen. But I think she balances it all perfectly, because she's a bit chaotic, and she's obviously, you know, her life hasn't been easy, but she's also very sweet and she's kind and she's fun. This is why she's slightly fantastical. She's a wee bit too perfect. But she's also like tough as old boots. Like, we'll obviously get onto the scene with her and Virgil later on. And so she's flirty and she's funny, and like to me, she balances it perfectly, but it's because she's not actually like that realistic of a person. Although I think their relationship feels quite real. I don't know if her as a character actually feels that real. I think she's a little bit like perfect woman person, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
She is like the ultimate pin-up. I mean, she looks like a 50s starlet, right? She's got the blonde hair, the red lips, the red nails, and her outfits are like kind of pop. And it's kind of what we were talking about on the Singing in the Rain podcast, about this vibrant technicolor that really gives films this kind of retro feel. And that's definitely what her character sort of embodies. I think she's someone who you can always see that she's got the best of intentions. I feel like she feels like a very pure person, and I think that kind of plays into a little bit about what Vanessa was saying about she's almost too perfect, but at the same time you can't help but want to sort of like wrap your arms around her. I think it's an absolutely brilliant performance, and I'm sure we will come on to talk about the sort of the two-hander between her and James Gandolfini, but I just think an actress who can really hold her own in a cast of like really quirky and unusual and a lot of method actors as well, like someone who still manages to pop and sort of like really have this vibrancy about her and kind of carries the whole sort of narrative through by herself, I think is no mean feat, especially in a film like this, and especially in a film written by Quentin Tarantino, who's obviously come under fire for poorly developed, you know, female characters who are simply there as sort of like gun fodder. I think for her to sort of make this her own and really hold her own throughout the entire film is something really special.
She is the only woman though, isn't she? I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
There isn't any other female character, really, apart from like kind of bit parts. There's no other established female character, is there?
Yeah, there's literally like there's a couple. There's a casting agent.
Casting director.
That's it.
Yeah.
And briefly, one of our friends, Drexel's place as well.
Part,
but that's that is pretty much just one level above sort of an extra performance there. It's interesting what you said about Christian Slater falling in love with Patricia Arquette. He has actually gone on the record and saying pretty much every film that he has been on, he has fallen in love with his co-star in one way or another. And he
I
said,
just imagine him walking in with like heart eyes, like literal cartoon heart eyes.
And the heart. And it didn't come across as being creepy or anything the way he said it. It's just because he says, like, I'm, spending a lot of time with these beautiful women, and they're just how could you not fall in love with them? And I haven't read anything about him being like a bit of a creep or anything, or that kind of.
No, he's definitely not hit
thing.
he's not hit the. I will say about this film actually, and I actually made this note quite specifically, is like obviously very early on in the film when Clarence and Alabama get together, we should have more blue lit silhouette sex scenes. They're so 90s, and I fucking love them. I actually want more of them in films, but I feel like there's something to it that just adds to this kind of like fantasy nature of it all, and it's just the fact that Christian Slater's willing to come out and say he's just fallen in love with people all over the place just makes him more endearing as a person.
It does.
Well.
I mean, I had a huge crush on him back in the day, especially things like Heathers and whatever, and the idea of him falling in love with and Winona Ryder and stuff. Like, I love that. I think that's just like you said, it just makes him more endearing, and it makes him like just more of a likable guy, basically, I think.
Yeah, totally. So Clarence himself, is he like a wee sort of lost boy type of thing, or is he just somebody who he just hasn't had his chance because he's just the type of person he is? He's a geeky guy in a time when geeky guys were not really as prominent as they are now. They're everywhere now, let's face it.
I've heard some like quite critical stuff about Clarence, like, he would be an incel and whatever, like if he was about today, really, and I'm like, I don't think so. I think he's a bit lonely, he's a bit geeky. Obviously, he's a bit based on Quentin Tarantino when Quentin Tarantino was his age, but I think he's obviously got quite a complicated relationship with his dad. I think it's implied that his mum's either dead or she's not in the picture anymore.
Yep.
But I think he's really likable. I think you're rooting for him the whole time. And like, you get the impression as well, like he isn't much of like a tough guy or whatever. He's quite like, quiet's probably like, and yet he goes and stands up to this like really like scary Drexel character because like of how he's treated Alabama and whatever. So like, I think you really root for him. I think I really like him as a character. I think he is a bit of a geek, but I think I like geeks, so that's fine with me anyway. But I don't find him in any way like, I can't think of the word, but like in any way like boring or drippy or annoying. Like, and I don't know if that is partly because it's Christian Slater, and like I said, I had a massive crush on Christian Slater when I was younger, but I just find him really cool. Basically, I just think he's like a cool guy.
Yeah, I think he's a sweetheart, and I think that there's an obvious like sense of sort of injustice imbued in him because of his dad, and he's got a real sense of right and wrong, and that's what spurs him on, obviously, to confront Drexel. But I remember the first time I watched this film when I was thinking, what are you doing when he walked into this scene? Because obviously he's just the comic book guy. You're like, don't go into this like situation. You're not capable of handling yourself. And then you realize obviously that sort of in a roundabout way he is. But I think that him and Alabama are matched really well in the sense that their intentions are always really pure and that they're very loyal to the people that they love and the people that they see as important to them. So I think that he's probably, before he met Alabama, he probably had quite a small world in the sense that he probably was just kind of going to work and back, and that's why his boss obviously had hired someone to get him laid for his birthday. But she sort of opens up his world and opens up his horizons, and it turns out he is actually quite capable of handling himself. So yeah. I think he's more complex than maybe you initially think when you first meet him.
Yeah, definitely. When he goes to see his father, he's obviously reluctant to ask for his help because he says, I haven't seen you in 3 years and I'm a pretty resourceful person, so I usually can get things done. So that's like a wee side of him that doesn't come out before then, because he appears to be quite lucky in a way in that he's able to go into a situation, a room full of drug dealers, and actually still be able to walk out of it, given the fact that he's left so much chaos behind him and everything. But yes, he's a very sympathetic character because he seems more lonely, but he's content as well because he loves his job. He loves working in a comic book store. It's something he enjoys. He likes the feel of comic books. He likes reading the stories. He likes looking at all the artwork and everything. So he's totally into that, and he loves music as well. So he's a normal guy, and he's kind of what I kind of got from it. He'd come to a sort of understanding with himself that he probably wouldn't find anybody. He probably wouldn't fall in love, and he'd be quite happy about that in a way, because he's got things in his life. Like you say, Mary, it's quite a small life that he has, but he seems quite content in it. He doesn't seem to be annoyed at himself or upset, and he doesn't seem to be like curious in any way, because obviously when he first meets Alabama and she spills popcorn on him and stuff, and then sits right behind him, starts talking to him. Now, if that happened to anybody else, you'd be saying, who the fuck is that person behind me?
And also, shut up, I'm watching a film.
Yeah. Do you not see what I'm actually watching here on the screen? So yes, it's interesting, the sort of characterization, because from the previous sort of Christian Slater performances, seeing like Heather's is a very sort of big performance, and this is much smaller. It's much more cooperative with Patricia Arquette here, rather than one of them being sort of over the top and other. They both sort of, they're kind of like you say, Mary, they're on the same sort of level and everything as well. So yeah, I really liked the way that he did that kind of performance. I thought it's particularly good, but then again, there wasn't that many bad performances in this film, let's face it. Your supporting cast here, obviously you've got a number of actors in there who, some were very well known at the time, some were not particularly well known at the time. But you could probably say, this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, Mary, is with scene stealers. Who do you think kind of stole the scenes that they were in this film? I know it's a big question.
That's so difficult. It's so hard because, like, they all do.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my goodness. Probably for me, Gary Oldman. But that's slightly because I love Gary Oldman so much, so I don't know. But he's just so deranged in this, and he's so playing kind of against type. And like, he apparently, up until quite recently, used to say that this was his favourite performance that he'd ever given. I think now it's Slow Horses, that he's in. But he loved this character so much, and I think that shows. But they're all so good. Like, apparently Brad Pitt improvised pretty much like everything he said, and he is just fucking hilarious in this. Like, he's so good. And it's so hard. But I think I'd pick Oldman. I'll talk myself out of it if I keep talking, so I'll just say Oldman.
Well, if you're going to be on it, the rate that you're going, obviously talking about this film this year, this is your third time talking about it, so you've got plenty of scope for changing it if you talk about it at least another 4 or 5 times.
That's true.
Mary.
Oh dear. Oh, I mean, this is like Sophie's Choice times 1,000. It really is. I mean, it's. I feel like the obvious choice is like, because I really like Christopher Walken. Like, I think he's just one of these like bizarre personalities that I'm sort of drawn to, because if he started a cult, I'd probably join it. Like, a bit like Christopher Lee, actually. But I love that two-hander between him and Dennis Hopper, because you have Dennis Hopper sort of on the back foot, which I wasn't used to seeing. Like, Dennis Hopper's always the bad guy in my head, so for him to be sort of tied up, and there's this sort of quiet stillness to Christopher Walken, but then he bursts out laughing that really throws you off kilter as well. So that to me is like, I love that as a two-hander. But I will say that the actor that plays Elliot, I think, has a rough ride in this film. Like, he is just getting all the shit from all angles. Like, it's just, he looks like he has the worst job in the world, and he's trying to climb the Hollywood career ladder, and he's maybe getting a blowy in a car, but it turns into a big bust, and he's having to wear a wire under his ball sack, and it's just like, he's having the worst time out of everyone in this film, I guarantee you. So I do think we have to note that his performance, just that total exasperation, is very, very good.
Yeah. That whole thing about the wire didn't make any sense to me, because why would he be frisked? They said, you have to wear it down there in case you get frisked. He was the one that was initiating the meeting, so who's going to frisk him? I think it was just a cruel joke on the part of the
film. I definitely,
they were taking the piss. Yeah, they were taking the piss out of him because, like, they two, who is it again? Is it Tom Sizemore and Chris
Penn?
Penn.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see their dirty cop show. Like
Yeah.
like the two of them is these like dirty cops. I'm like, I want to see that spin-off. I mean, obviously you couldn't now because I think both of them, you know, have passed away. But like, I'm like, that would be such a cool spin-off because I just think they are so good. It's, well, I don't know if they're dirty. They seem like they'd be dirty cops, but I think
they seem, yeah,
they
seem
do,
like they're
don't
up
they?
to the worst of the worst, and like obviously
Yeah.
taking the piss out of poor Elliot as well. Like I feel
Although
like
Elliot, I mean, you would take the piss out of Elliot. He's such an idiot. Like, see that scene in the car with the blowjob and the cocaine? It's so funny because it's just like.
and he's like, they're not going to frisk you. Put it between your legs, then put it in your purse and whatever, and then it's just right in his face, and it's literally the most ridiculous thing. He does that slow, like 3/4 pan, turn around to face the policeman, and it's just like he's like
all over, and it's just like, hi. It's so good. I love it. So kudos to that actor actually, because that is yeah, he is good, and he provides a wee bit like Brad Pitt. He provides much needed comic, you know, element to the movie as well. I think definitely.
Yeah, a few of his scenes were more improvised than scripted. There was some stuff in it with when he was making the phone call to his boss. You couldn't hear him properly, so he was having to improvise certain lines. And the interview in the police station was improvised as well between the three actors.
Oh, brilliant!
Oh, wow!
All that sort of stuff. Just they were given a certain amount of license to do that. But yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, with the Gary Oldman and the Brad Pitt characters here, both of them were given a couple of minutes on screen, no more, and yet they're noted as being really, really sort of important characters in this film. Brad Pitt was just given the remit of a guy who sits on the couch. He developed the whole sort of stoner angle and everything to do with that, and sort of made the character a wee bit more memorable because he was wanting at the time to sort of push away slightly from his like Hollywood bad boy, you know, pin-up image that he got because he'd been in the likes of Dallas and things like that. So he was wanting to actually make himself a little more serious, and this was one of his attempts to actually do that rather than like do things like Legends of the Fall and all this kind of thing. It was moving slightly away from all that sort of stuff, but obviously Gary Oldman actually signed up to it just on the pitch that was put to him by Tony Scott because they hadn't read anything about the character. He said, oh, he didn't have time, but he'd agreed to meet Tony Scott, and then Tony Scott says he's a white guy but he pretends to be black, and went, sign me up.
That was enough for me.
Yeah.
The thing is, this character, and this is why I had seen it before, or seen his character beforehand, he's always touted as like one of the top 10 movie villains of all time, or like basically like despicable bastards that's ever been in film. But his screen time is so limited, so it is kind of testament to the sort of look and feel of the character that he is so highly rated, despite the fact that, as you say, John, he's got like 2 minutes on screen, because even I knew who this character was before I'd even gone in to watch the film. So it's kind of mad how impactful that small role has been. Yeah,
and I mean, if you look at the sort of screen time that's allocated to all of these supporting characters, I would say that for the majority of them, especially some of the big name ones, it's no more than 5 or 10 minutes on screen. It just, you know, it seems to be one and done. Dennis Hopper, he has maybe 3 scenes at the most. Yeah, so it's crazy the way they put it together like that, but it kind of fits with episodic nature, I would say, more than anything else. Obviously, this was written by Mr. Tarantino. I'm not going to call him Quentin because I don't know him personally, and you know. So what scenes in the film feel unmistakably Tarantino-esque?
The Sicilian scene. Yeah, the Sicilian scene, I think, feels Tarantino. I think the scene with Samuel L. Jackson, which is like blink and you'll miss it, feels Tarantino. Drexel, Clarence standoff, I think actually quite a lot of it. Alabama.
There's a few to choose from there.
Yeah, there's quite a few. Even the finale is quite. So yeah, I think there's quite a few that are quite unmistakably Tarantino.
Yeah, I think the final bus stop in particular, because it's very violent, but there's also like a fuck ton of feathers going everywhere. So there is that sort of like ludicrousness to it that he often sort of imbues in his violence. So I think that in particular, but yeah, definitely the Sicilian scene as well, like that has fingerprints all over it, but like in the best possible way. Like it works.
Yeah, totally. For me, it would be the initial introduction between Clarence and Alabama, where they're in the cinema and he's talking about the Sonny Chiba film and he describes what's going on, and that's very sort of Tarantino. He describes it very well. And then the next thing they do is they go to a comic book store and he starts talking about like Spider-Man #1 and Sergeant Fury, Nick Fury comic book as well. So he talks about these sort of things, and that's so much like Tarantino because he's done like sort of like additional writing on other films as well, and it's all the same sort of stuff. Where I think it's Crimson Tide, he did a wee bit of work on that, just sort of sparked up some of the dialogue where they're talking about Silver Surfer and things like that as well.
He loves a pop culture reference.
Oh yeah, so all that feels very sort of Tarantino.
Is that not another Tony Scott movie? It's Crimson Tide,
yeah. I think he was brought in just to add a wee bit of flavour to the dialogue, just to change it up a wee bit, and he did look at like a bit of a rewrite. Nothing really past that. It was very sort of early stages, and you can tell because it doesn't feel like the other dialogue in the film because it's very serious. Because obviously they're stuck in a submarine kind of idea. Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of the sort of the monologues here. You mentioned the Sicilian one, the country references I mentioned, and obviously there's Elvis as well. So how do you think that sort of shapes the tone of the film? Does it define it for you?
The monologues.
Yeah. The monologues more than anything else.
Yeah, I suppose I think it does a little bit because they're all really memorable. The Sicilian scene in particular, but I think the pop culture references. I love Val Kilmer is in it so little, and apparently they had to be really careful. They couldn't call him Elvis because it was like they were going to have to pay like the Elvis estate or whatever. So it's very obviously Elvis, but it's kind of not at the same time. And yeah, I think that does really shape the movie because I think all of those voices are like Tarantino in a way. Like, because when Clarence is talking about Kung Fu or whatever, that's Tarantino. The Sicilian scene, apparently Tarantino... somebody told him that, like somebody that he lived with at uni or something, told him like that story, and he always wanted to put it in a movie. And then I think when it comes to like the Elvis / mentor character, again, I think you're hearing Tarantino's voice through all these characters. So I think going back to what we said a wee while ago about how it was probably more a Tarantino movie than a Tony Scott movie, I think that's why, because all these different voices are all Tarantino, if that makes sense.
Oh no, yeah, totally. Yep.
I think it's sort of testament to how this film sort of genre bends as well, because Tarantino often takes a genre and then subverts it and does his own kind of thing in it. And I think with these monologues, you get like your mafia film, your road trip, your messy romance, your police, shootout. That's what you get, all these different styles of films that are such like individual styles in themselves, and they've got their own rhythm and their own pattern. And he somehow sort of weaves it into one kind of story, and that's definitely his thing. I mean, if you look at, for example, Inglourious Basterds and how that's split into different chapters, and each chapter's got its own kind of unique feel and style to it as well. He's someone who's really comfortable with sort of blending like genres that he loves together, and that's kind of how these monologues sort of fit into this film as well, I think.
Oh yeah, totally. If you've read his book, I think it's Cinematic Persuasions, I can't remember what it's called. He basically talks through some of the most seminal films for him from the 1970s, the stuff that he was watching when he was growing up. And it's a real mixture of all different styles of films. It's not just the one type of thing. The Elvis inclusion is very interesting, given the fact that Quentin Tarantino played an Elvis impersonator on an episode of The Golden Girls in the mid-80s.
I didn't know that. That's
so
weird.
The end of that sentence has just thrown me for a loop. I did not think you were going to say The Golden Girls. That's fantastic.
I know. I remember it at the time.
I'm going to have to look this up.
I'm literally going to watch it straight after this.
go on to Disney Plus and you will be able to see it, because I've
wow.
rewatched The Golden Girls over the last maybe like year and a half. Been watching the episodes every now and then, and there's a sequence where it's a bunch of Elvis impersonators and Quentin Tarantino, so you can see him quite clearly, and he doesn't have any speaking lines, but yeah, he is there. So obviously the love of Elvis goes way back for him. It really kind of works very well.
That's so cool.
So obviously that some of the scenes are a bit problematic, as you've said. Why do you think that they are problematic now, and do you think they were problematic at the time?
Yeah, I think the two big ones for me would be the Sicilian scene, which I love. Like, it is my favorite scene in the movie, but there's, it's a very racist scene, and Quentin Tarantino is accused, I think, especially in a lot of his early films, of like having a lot of casual racism just like thrown in there. Yeah. He defends it by saying he was told this story by somebody that he lived with at one point, and the guy that told him the story was a black guy, apparently.
Yeah.
And he somehow uses this to say, like, it's okay because a black guy told me this story. I'm not sure if that really flies, but I think it was problematic when it came out. I think people are just a little bit more sensitive to that kind of stuff now, and I think the scene between Gandolfini and Patricia Arquette is quite problematic in a couple of ways. Obviously, watching a guy beat up a woman for a long time is never going to be a nice thing, but there's this weird sexual undertone thing to it. Like, I was speaking to, was it my brother about it when we talked about it, or was it somebody? I was speaking to somebody not long ago about it, who said the first time they saw this movie without knowing what was going to happen, they thought that scene was going to end with him raping her. And I was like, I can completely understand why you would go there, because just the way that he's talking to her and the way that he's goading her and stuff, there is this like weird, and that makes it quite uncomfortable to watch, because obviously, as I said, it's horrible watching a guy beat up a woman so violently, but that kind of sexual element, I don't know, I find it quite uncomfortable watching that now, and I probably didn't pick up on that, like being like in my late teens or 20 when I first saw it, I definitely wouldn't have picked up on that way back then, but I just find it a bit icky or something, I don't know.
Yeah,
totally. I would completely agree. That's the first time I saw it, I thought that was heading towards a sexual assault, especially when he's like ripping his shirt open and stuff, and it's so uncomfortable, especially because not just a man beating up a woman, but a man of his size versus a woman of her size as well. Like, the dynamic is just so off. I think that obviously at the time, we're going back to 1993, and this is not me making excuses, but I think at the time Tarantino was trying to sort of carve out this new path for himself, where he was this super controversial, super violent, like didn't give a fuck kind of filmmaker. And so his early films are full of things like a white guy pretending to be a black guy, or liberal use of the N-word, or extreme violence towards women. And I'm not saying that makes it right, but I think that was the kind of path he was trying to carve out for himself, is like, oh, my films are so controversial, or it was a controversial thing to go and see a Tarantino movie. As you said, John, you can actually see Reservoir Dogs without it being like in some slightly seedy night theatre where you had to wear your flashers Mac to get in. But I think that that's perhaps the route that he was choosing quite purposefully. I'm not saying that makes it okay, but I think, the elements of early Tarantino are here for everyone to sort of see kind of really laid bare.
Yeah, totally. I think you've both highlighted the more sort of problematic elements of this film. They were problematic at the time, and I don't think they've really got any better as it's been viewed in a sort of a modern light as well. I had issues with the Virgil and Alabama scene, because I have a bit of a thing about people doing, clever people doing stupid things. This guy's an underling to a mob boss who basically does not like anybody failing. So would he really go through all this in like an extended sequence where he's, knocking the shit out of a woman in order to get information? And would he not have just checked under the bed as soon as he arrived? He would have cased the joint,
But does he not enjoy it though? Like the sense
does,
is that
yes,
he does, and do you know what? I think if that scene was filmed now, it would be very, very different. I think there would be like a minute or 30 seconds of him going for her, and then you would get like 10 minutes of her beating him up. Do you know? I think the dynamic would be switched. But I think he enjoys it, because it's not only the violence and this weird sexual element. There's also this psychopathic stuff when he talks about like the first time you've killed somebody, and how awesome and how the first one's and you're watching it and you're like, no wonder this guy ended up going to be like Tony Soprano, because he's like so good, but he's really scary. I find him even scarier than I think I find like the Drexel character or I can't remember Christopher Walken's name in it, but you know, I think I find him the scariest character in this, because he is like an actual psychopath, I think.
Oh yeah,
I think
totally. Yeah, sorry,
I was going to just say, the way he holds himself in this film, like his shoulders and his head are hunched forward,
yeah,
which means his chin is dipped. So when he's smiling, it looks really maniacal, because like if you smile, because there's something like the way he's holding himself, you're like, even when you are allegedly having a good time, you look fucking mental. So I think there's definitely there's like a danger to him that feels way more palpable than some of the other characters. And also because, as Vanessa said, that speech where he's talking about how easy it is to kill people, you're just like, right, this is the last person I'd want to be stuck in a room with, because he's obviously just going to put a gun to my head and that'll be it. But there's something about his character that's so is way further off the charts than any of the other kind of villains in this piece.
Yeah, it's when he's just talking to her initially and he says, oh, you know, like, turn around for me, and she starts and goes, no, turn the other way. And you go, whoa, that's certainly not. That's somebody who has certain particular things about him that you really don't want to investigate in any way, I think. So
he's got lampshades made of skin. I'm convinced of it.
So do you think that those are the two sort of outstanding scenes in the film, or is there any other that would come to mind? I know this is a bit of an open question again, because there's maybe probably 10 scenes we could probably talk about, and I know I would change my mind if I watched it again. I would change my mind and watch something else. But are these sort of main ones, or is there any others that really sort of stand out for you?
The Drexel Clarence scene, I think, stands out for me, because it's all of a sudden you're in this place and there's this like techno music playing, and he's got all this Chinese food, and it's just manic. Like, it's so weird, and he's saying all this weird stuff. And there's like a Richard Pryor movie on the TV where a woman wears boobs out. The whole thing is just like that's quite Tarantino, I think. And it's just so bizarre that it makes it like so memorable. So for me, I think that's a standout scene, because I just think the whole way it's staged, the whole kind of like set design, the music, everything just makes it absolutely wild. It's like some kind of like fever dream or something. And I love it because it's just crazy. Absolutely. And I think at one point there's a fish tank, isn't there? And it bursts, and it's just like all this visual stuff. You're like, oh my God, what should I look at? And I love that. And it's just amazing, because it's like you're on drugs or something watching it. Like, and he's wearing like this, like, you know, the leopard print, like dressing gown and the boxer. It's just like fantastic, because it's so crazy. Like, I don't know what I got. It's just so good because it's mad. It's just like, what the fuck am I watching? I want to see more.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can only echo what Vanessa has said. That is just like, if you're going to sort of establish your, you know, put your stall out, as it were. I mean, this is just balls to the wall from the minute that scene kicks off, and it's just more of that as the film progresses, isn't it? So I think that's definitely one of the more memorable ones.
Oh yeah, definitely. So there's a big sort of final shootout standoff scene at the end, and I'm not that bothered about not, you know, sort of tiptoeing around it. The film is quite old. It's from 1993, so if you haven't seen it by now and you're listening to this podcast, then I think there's something seriously wrong with you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So really, we're going to sort of spoil the ending of it a wee bit. So the final shootout, the standoff, the big scene, obviously with Elliot with the wire and the armed guards and everything, and the way that it all kind of comes together. Do you think the ending is earned in this film, given the fact that this wasn't there was an alternate ending to this, which involved some of the same sort of elements, but played out slightly differently? Do you think it's earned? Do you think it's just a wee bit chaotic? Is it a wee bit sort of Keystone Cops, a bit sort of crazy, or is it the way that a fairy tale should naturally end?
I think it's the way it should end, because you've introduced all these different factions, and then you're bringing them all together. Also, it's got the guy who plays Saul Rubinek. Oh, what's his name? He's in Unforgiven.
Oh,
Elliot Bliss. No, Saul Rubinek's the guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he plays Lee. Yeah.
Yeah, Lee Donowitz. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up.
Yeah.
Saul Rubinek, the actor playing Lee Donowitz. Like, see the bit, like, he's overacting so much at the end. Like, when he's saying to Elliot, like, I treated you like a son and you stabbed me in the heart and all of this. It's just crazy. Because, again, it's just like, what are you talking about? But, like, I think just bringing it all together like that, I don't see another way for it to end. I've seen the alternative ending when Clarence died. I don't think it's that good. I think it's a bit. I much prefer. A fairy tale should have a happy ending. And if we're saying that this is a fairy tale or a fantasy, them going away to Mexico together, having a lovely life, having a little boy, that's the ending you want. You don't want him dying. But like for me, it's bonkers, but like it is earned because a lot of the movie is bonkers, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. It's just batshit on top of the batshit, isn't it? I mean, I think one of the things that you could accuse, if you want to call it that, Tarantino, obviously his endings are often very operatic and very hyperbolic, and this really feels like that as well. Like, you've got this three-way bust-up between the cops, the sort of Hollywood mafia, and the bodyguards, one of whom really looks like Erling Haaland, which I never obviously noticed the first time I watched it because that was a while ago and he wasn't a footballer then. But the sort of main bodyguard who's like right up for it and ready to kill everyone, I was like,
the blonde guy.
Yeah. I was like, you really look like that footballer. And then you've obviously got like Clarence in the toilet talking to not Elvis, and it just, there's all these sort of like short, sharp edits. There's feathers everywhere. Everyone's sort of willing to go down to the last bullet. You know, everyone's sort of willing to die. And I love the craziness of it all. It does feel very, very manic, but the whole film has felt manic and the characters feel manic. And as Vanessa says, if you're going to have a fairy tale ending, then it has to be on the beach in Mexico. It can't be any other way. It needs to have this sort of like happy but messy ending.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I like the way that they built it up, and then they just kind of deflated the whole situation by Clarence going to the toilet and having a wee conversation with Elvis
with
in the background.
Elvis, not Elvis.
Yeah.
That's one way to survive a
legal
shootout, right? You
reasons.
just kid on, you need a pee, and be like, right, back in 5 minutes, guys.
Yeah, the guy that you were talking about, the blonde-haired guy, is a guy called Eric Allen Kramer, who was in. He was the father in a Disney TV show called Good Luck Charlie. It was on the
oh my
Disney
God!
Channel.
So he was. Mammy's sister used to watch this.
He was bald by that time. He didn't have the long flowing hair, and I couldn't think where I'd seen him before. And then I thought, I've watched hundreds of episodes of this program sitting beside the kids.
Your daughter's about the same age as Mammy's sister. That is mad. That's brilliant.
I know, but yes, I think it couldn't really have ended in another way. I don't think you needed, like say, Vanessa, you're bringing everything together, and then it's this just massive shootout, and of course, every single piece of furniture in the room is full of feathers, so all this comes into play as well, and there's feathers everywhere flying, and it's a very sort of not so much a sort of Tarantino style, but it's a very sort of Hong Kong action style. They tend to do this. There's bits of slow motion, and usually they have doves flying, so there's bird feathers everywhere and all this kind of stuff. But it's that kind of idea, and I think it works really well. And the fact that yes, Clarence survives, but he's got an eye patch. So, for somebody that gets shot in the head, I think he did all right, He did okay. He seemed to be okay.
Could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been worse, yeah. We talked a wee bit about the sort of the style and the direction. Obviously, this is a Tony Scott film. How do you think that his approach to filmmaking sort of reshapes the sort of the Tarantino script? Do you think, obviously we've spoken, it's a bit of a mix between the two, but how does he put his stamp on this film and make it, I'm filmed to Tony Scott rather than what everybody thinks? It's probably like, I'm sure there's a certain number of people out there who think that Tarantino actually may have been heavily involved in this film, which he wasn't. He said he wasn't on set or anything because he wrote it, he handed it over, and it was like, go away and do what you want. He wasn't going to be there interfering every day, doing rewrites and stuff like that, especially since Tony Scott changed the end and Tarantino wanted it in the first place. So how do you think that Tony Scott's put his stamp on it, like visual style, aesthetics, that kind of idea, and the direction?
think it's glossier than a Tarantino movie. I think some of the kind of action bits, like the roller coaster scene, I think feels more like Tony Scott than Quentin Tarantino. And I found out something about that scene actually that was quite funny. Michael Rappaport, is that his name, that plays?
Yes.
He was absolutely shit scared of roller coasters. So they gave him Quaaludes, which apparently were quite freely available back then, like to calm him down. So some of the seats, so in bits you see him and he's like screaming because he's not on drugs and he's genuinely terrified. And then you see him and he's just like really, really high because he's on the Quaaludes, which I found really amusing. But I think like a scene like that's quite Tony Scott. I think it would be a bit weirder if Tarantino had directed it, so I think it's a bit like kind of glossier, and obviously I think Tarantino wanted it out of sequence. I think you mentioned that, John, about how like originally it wasn't going to be linear. Originally the first scene was going to be the scene where we meet Drexel with Samuel L. Jackson, and then it was going to jump all over the place a little bit, I suppose a wee bit like Pulp Fiction. I think having it linear works, and I think that Tony Scott made it a more enjoyable movie. I think if Tarantino had directed it, I don't know if I'd be sitting going, oh, this is my favourite film ever. Like, I think it was more easier to understand, but also like to me the action sequences are all, and like I've not seen loads of Tony Scott films, so I'm not like a Tony Scott like super fan or anything, so it's maybe slightly hard, but the ones I have seen are all quite actiony type movies, and he seems to be quite good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Mary.
Yeah, I think also the violence is slightly smoother because I feel like in Tarantino films he's got a very sort of like Sam Peckinpah approach to violence. Like it's very spattery and like the blood, maybe you look at the camera and it's a very obvious type of violence where although there is a lot of blood spilled here, I felt like it was a more sort of like, I don't know, like a smoother type of approach to it. It wasn't doing it for like shock necessarily, even though the violence is quite shocking. But yeah, and I think as you've all touched on, I'll not be a parrot, the structure is the big thing, right? It just helps put the film sort of back together, as it were.
Yeah, there is a distinct lack of blood, considering the amount of violence that's actually in this film, especially when Alabama is getting beaten up. She has blood on her, but it would be a lot more than it was.
But there's not blood all over the room or anything. Yeah,
exactly. You would get that more, and because of Tony Scott's background and the likes of advertising, he came through that sort of route, so he's got a very good eye for making something very interesting to look at. There's always a lot of stuff in and about the rooms, and it helps the fact that it's set within like the sort of the film world. So when they have the final meeting, they're projecting dailies behind them as well. So it's all, there's always something going on in the background, and there's always like things like posters and all this sort of stuff. So it just adds to the whole sort of scene of it as well. So yeah, I really do like that. So you mentioned, Vanessa, earlier about the sort of differences between Detroit and California in terms of the colouring and all that. Do you think that reflects on what the story beats that actually happened at the time, or do you just think it's a way of showing like the complete contrast between the two situations that they find themselves in?
I think a wee bit of both, because I mean I don't think Detroit is supposed to be like that nice a place, and like when they're there, like Alabama is a sex worker and she's obviously not very happy, and then he's in a comic book store, he's kind of lonely. So like by the time they go to LA, like things are on the up for them. They've got this valuable case of cocaine, they can start a new life. So I think there is a bit of the contrast, but I think it does play into the story beat as well. Like even when they drive, when you first see them driving into LA and they've got like Aerosmith on the radio, and all of a sudden it's dead bright, and it's like, just, I don't know, like this is very different to where they've come. And it is, I mean, I don't know Detroit, I don't know California either. I've only ever been to like the East Coast of America, but like they do seem like quite different places kind of culturally, and I think that comes out. And I think the kind of going into the more technical, or I think it's because for them this is a chance for both of them to get away from a life that they're not that happy in for different reasons, and to, you know, go and make some money and start a new life. And see what TV looks like in other countries. They're kind of obsessed with TV. She talks about TV a lot.
That's generally one of my favourite lines in the whole film, because like now if you ever go abroad on holiday and you just flick the telly on in the background while you're getting ready or whatever, like that's one of my favourite things about holiday. It's like, what's going on in German TV? Let's just switch this on while I'm dyeing my hair. And you don't understand what's going on, but you're just kind of like, I love that. But I think just to touch on what Vanessa said, I think Detroit, I feel like, is one of these cities that somehow gets a bum deal in cinema, because it's a bit like sort of maybe like Philly or Boston, where it's seen as like very industrial and very grim and like a sort of like a hard knock life where maybe your only option is to become like a call girl or whatever I want to call it, whereas Hollywood is presented obviously as this land of opportunity, obviously because it's cinema reflecting on cinema. So it's glorious technicolor, you can make loads of money, you can sell loads of drugs, you can set yourself up for a nice life. So it's a wee bit sort of tongue-in-cheek, I think, talking about, you know, kind of the land of dreams. I kind of feel like that's maybe the sort of joke that they're kind of cracking here.
Yeah, and the fact that obviously there's a big difference between the climate at the time of when they were actually filming it, between the sort of east and the west. So when you're in Detroit, they're all wearing like dark clothes, heavy overcoats, and it's grayer and it's just a bit more dreich, let's face it. It's just not particularly nice. They're filming at night, and then there's obviously a scene where they go to visit Clarence's dad, and he lives beside a train line, so it's not particularly nice there. And there's these big dogs wandering about as well. So there's, you know, it's all kind of dark and dreary. And then when that reflects in what they're wearing as well, they're wearing darker clothes. He always wears like a big overcoat and things like that. But then when they head out west, it's all bright, and like you said, Mary, it's like pop. There's a pop to Alabama's clothing. Even Clarence's clothing, he wears Hawaiian shirts and like sort of very sort of light coloured jackets and everything, and it's the sunglasses and all that kind as well. So it's much nicer, and it's like more sort of saturation colour as well. So I think it totally changes the way. And like you say, like it feels very grimy. The stories feel very grimy in Detroit, and it's all, you know, land of opportunity, which obviously isn't at all. But you know, I did kind of like that, so I thought that was kind of nice. So did you think that the characters were obviously choosing to reinvent themselves in this new life as well, especially Clarence and Alabama? So do you think that was kind of a subtle thing, or do you think it was like totally right up front in your face, saying new clothes, new life? You know, they're going away, heading into the sunset, which they actually do at the very end. You get a sunset.
I think it was obvious. I think it was in your face. They're going, things are going to be better for them. They're changing. Like you said, they're wearing brighter clothes. They're happier. They're riding off into the sunset at the end. I think it just feeds back more into that kind of fantasy thing that, this is, I think it's very obvious. I don't think it's like a subtle move, you know what I mean, between the two places.
Yeah, it's the old dress for the job you want, and they want to be living on the beach having a good time. So that's kind of how they're sort of taking things. So I think it's, again, like what you said, Vanessa, I can't stop thinking about this Wizard of Oz comparison, but I just think it's so right. It's like literally just stepping into the sort of technicolor world, and that's exactly what they do here. But I think as well, it shows a different sort of facet to their characters as well. It's like this is the life that they have perhaps always desired, or the life that they've always dreamt of, and now that it's become a possibility, it's not just the costume change, it's like there's this like character change as well, because there's a real giddiness about them. Like they can't stop kissing, they're having hamburgers and milkshakes every day, they stay at this really cool looking motel with a 4-poster bed, and it's all really swanky, and it just feels like there's a lightness about them that they never had back in Detroit, because everything just felt a bit more hunched and a bit more, you know, big jacket on and a bit grim. Yeah,
totally. So touching on the music here, Hans Zimmer is the composer on this film. He was not so much accused, but a lot of people would pointed out the similarities between his opening music and the music from Badlands, especially if you compare the opening sequences where you have this sort of light, whispery monologue with the music, and then if you watch Badlands, it's Sissy Spacek pretty much doing the exact same thing. So what did you think about the music? Did it work for you? Or it obviously it wasn't like a Tarantino film, because early Tarantino films had no score. It was pretty much all needle drops. So did you enjoy the music in this film?
I did. I haven't seen Badlands. I have heard that said, and I really should see it. But so I mean, there's another bit of music that Hans Zimmer said inspired, like some really old bit of music that he says inspires this. In a way, I really like Hans Zimmer. He also does the music for Thelma and Louise, which is like probably my second favourite film. And it's Tony Scott's brother, randomly, who directs that. So I must have a thing about Hans Zimmer and the Scott brothers. I think the only criticism is it's maybe slightly overdone. The music comes in again and again. And I love the music. But I suppose now a wee bit, like I've heard that music when I've been like on hold before and stuff, so like it's really well known. I listened to an interview with Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt recently where she said this is her favourite film, and she walked down the aisle to that music, which I thought was really sweet. But I do really like it. I think it suits the tone of the film because it is kind of fantastical. But the only criticism I would have is that you hear it maybe just a wee bit too much, that same refrain over and over. There are a couple of needle drops in the movie. Like I mentioned Aerosmith. There are a couple of other needle drops that I think work quite well as well. But yeah, overall, I really do like the soundtrack to this movie.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those kind of instantly recognisable pieces of music, and also it feels like a percussion score, which is quite unusual, specifically for Zimmer as well, who loves his his brass and his strings, so it feels like really light for him as well. And I think the lightness of touch sort of adds to the film as well, and how it is this kind of like semi-dreamlike kind of quality to it. And you do have the soundtrack as well that has a lot of sort of jukebox kind of classics to it, kind of giving it that retro feel as well. So there is a nice blend. I saw Badlands after I saw this film, and the comparison is there. There's no two ways about it. I guess if you would just have to, like, I don't know, sit down in a room and work out who wrote what first, but they are very, very similar.
Yeah, it kind of fits very nicely with the whole sort of Tarantino oeuvre and reusing certain elements and stuff like that from films as well. A wee piece of information that I found out about this film was initially this came from a story by his friend Roger Avery. He came up with a story, and Tarantino went away and rewrote it and came up with this 500-page screenplay. Now, given that for a screenplay, it's usually a minute screen time per page, so this is a bit of a mammoth one. And they actually split this screenplay in two. One was True Romance and the other was Natural Born Killers. They kind of just split it down the middle.
There are similarities. There are similarities
Yay.
between the two. Yeah.
Yep. I was interested in the way that kind of came about, and the fact that Tarantino had spent so long pushing this screenplay and trying to get backing for it. And he just never managed to do it. It was years and years, and eventually he got introduced to Tony Scott. Tony Scott liked it, so therefore took it from there. So yeah, I thought it's quite an interesting wee journey he was taking in order to get that, because he was wanting to try and self-finance it as well, but he never actually got anywhere with that. It would have been a much, like you've said, both of you said, it'd be a much different film if we'd actually got there. Within sort of Tony Scott's filmography, where do you think this sits? You think it sits up at the top, or is it? And they're considering, like you said, Vanessa, a lot of Tony Scott's films are blockbusters. They're big event cinema type things. So how does this kind of fit in with his filmography?
I don't think it really does. I think it's a bit of an outlier when you look.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at his filmography earlier because, like I said, I've not seen everything, and I really like a lot of his movies. Obviously, like Top Gun, Enemy of the State. I love that movie.
I love that film. Yeah, it's good.
It's so good. And even the remake that he did of The Taking of Penham 1, 2, 3 for a remake. Actually, thought it was pretty good, but this is nothing like any of them. It's so out there. I've not seen others. Maybe I've not seen Crimson Tide. I've not seen another few that he did, but like, I don't know, that to me this feels like a total out. I mean, for me, obviously, given it's my favorite film, I'm going to say it's the best thing that he directed. But you know what I mean. I'm not gonna. But to me, it doesn't really sit with other movies. It feels quite different to everything else that he's done, I think.
Oh yeah, totally different. I would say that because, like, other sort of stuff he's done is more sort of actiony, and it is far more straightforward. There's slightly less character development. They don't have as many characters for a start, because obviously this is dozens of people. It's usually, with his films, you've got one or two protagonists and a variety of people around it, and it's a fairly straightforward story. But yeah, I would agree with you, it's a complete outlier here. Mary?
Yeah, I mean, because when I think about like early Tony Scott, and you're talking about like Top Gun and Days of Thunder, like you do kind of associate him with that big glossy Tom Cruise number. So this feels like wildly different. And even as you get later on, like of Enemy of the State, even Man on Fire, which is quite a good film as well. Yeah. It's just, it feels so different. And I think that, again, it comes down to that notion of like obviously Tarantino's involvement. But I think that it's kind of testament to Tony Scott, I guess, for trying something that, or directing something and being involved in something that is wildly different to what he's kind of known for. Because so often directors and actors and writers, actually, in fairness, branch out and try something different, and people are all too keen to sort of pigeonhole them back into what they're more comfortable with. Whereas he's obviously kind of struck out early on in his career and done something that's really quite different to the rest of his filmography.
Yeah. So why do you think True Romance is endured as a cult favourite? I'll ask you, Vanessa, because obviously it's your favourite film. So
it's weird, because when I started raving about this film, nobody had seen it. Like folk would say, what's your favourite film? I'd say True Romance. Like I said earlier, people would be like, oh, I don't really like romantic movies. And I'm like, it's not really like that. I now have talked to a few people over the years who say that this is their favourite movie. I know a couple who on their first date realised this was like both their favourite movies, which and I mean they're now like they've been together years, and I thought that was really sweet. Why is it endured? Is it really just basic to say because it's fucking brilliant? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that kind of works.
I mean, I think like Mary mentioned earlier, there's so many different genres. It's kind of got something for everyone. It's got a stacked cast. It looks amazing. It's got this fairy tale element to it. It's quite escapism, even though there is quite a lot of violence and some of it is quite problematic. It's not a nihilistic movie in any way. It's, you know, it's got a happy ending. It's got comedy. Yeah, I think it's just got quite a lot of things that people like. And I think right now there's quite a nostalgia for the 90s, because I think a lot of people, myself included, remember the 90s as being quite a hopeful and optimistic time. And given a lot of the stuff that's going on like around the world politically and everything just now, I think it doesn't feel as stable now. So I think a lot in 90s movies and 90s TV shows and stuff are getting a little bit more love, because people are like, remember the 90s? It was such a nice time. Do you know what I mean? I think that helps. I think that definitely helps it. But I think it's just got lots of elements that people enjoy. And it's got that kind of love story, but it's also got like all the other parts to it. So yeah, I just think it's got something for everyone. Like when people are like, I've never seen it, I'm always like, right, okay, when are we watching it? Like, I'll make you watch it.
You should just take a copy of it everywhere.
Yeah, I know, wherever you go, right?
I know.
Just roll your eyes, say, oh, for fuck's sake, not again, and just hand
over. A public service, that would be an actual public service.
Oh god, I think there's also a bit of a timelessness to it, right? It feels retro, even though it's a 90s film shot in the night. There's something kind of retro about it that you just kind of feel like it's endured for, you know, a lot longer than what it has. And I think everything that Vanessa said, you know, the genre, the cast, you know, the mix of it, like there really is something for everyone. And it's kind of one of those fun films to watch. Even if you have seen it before, where you're like, oh, that's so and so, or can't believe that he's only in it for 2 minutes. There is a kind of like fun sort of star spotting element to it as well that kind of makes it just really fun to watch over and over again. And I think that everyone loves a good sort of crazy fairy tale. That's why, you know, like for example, Disney films still endure because everyone likes to see the happy ending, and everyone it's a shame that more films like this aren't getting made in this kind of style, because it feels audacious, it feels timeless, and it just feels really like, yeah, you could take this, like you could go with your friends, you could go on a date night, you could take whoever, and it would just be like good viewing no matter who you were with or where you were watching it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Timeless kind of covers it perfectly, because it's not reliant on any sort of technology. It's not that type of story that they'll date it with phones or computers or anything. It just doesn't even go anywhere near anything like that. So it works in that sort of way. And like I say, it's for everybody. It works as a date film because it is a romantic film. Whereas my best friends, the first film that they went to see together was Goodfellas, which I wouldn't class as a date film in any way whatsoever.
Quite long for a date movie as well.
Yeah, and they are still together, so obviously something works. So. Having said that, do you think if the film was made today, it would work? Sorry, Mary, you're going to say something else? Sorry, there you go.
No, it was literally just nonsense. Carry on.
No, please. Nonsense is good. Pod gold.
That is the first question, though, that like certainly when I was speaking to my husband, like when we were courting, it was like, what kind of films do you like, and what kind of movies would you go and see? Because if you're not compatible with someone movie wise, as Clarence and Alabama established quite early on in this film, then the relationship's a no-go.
So when did you actually start dating, Chris? If you were courting, was it the 1870s?
Yeah, I'm a vampire. I just
So imagine, if you will, that Hollywood likes to remake things, and it came up that True Romance was going to be remade in 2026.
No.
I'd be raging, be livid. I would not stop talking and ranting about it. I would not be happy.
Yeah. So you couldn't see it working in any way?
I couldn't. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of remakes anyway, unless they bring something really different to the table. But no, I mean, even if it was released today as a brand new movie, if it hadn't come out, 30 odd years ago, I'm not sure if it would work today. Or maybe it would, because it is, I think Mary said, it is timeless, but I don't know. I don't know the Gen. What are they called? The Gen, is it Xers
Z's
or Z's or Z's? Yeah, I get them mixed up. The Gen Z and the Gen Alpha. I don't have much time for them. They watch a lot of crap on TikTok, so I don't know if they'd appreciate. I'm always like, I don't know if they'd appreciate. That's just because I'm old, but I don't know. I think if they were to remake
it, scenes on TikTok, though. That's what you've just said there. This would be individual scenes on TikTok.
That's what would happen, because that's what happens now, isn't it? You get specific bits from movies, and they end up getting really popular on TikTok, and then that's how people end up seeing the movie. So maybe it would work, but if they were to remake it, I would be absolutely livid. I would really be unhappy about that.
I'm already picturing your One Woman campaign to stop it.
Yeah, I don't think it would work.
I don't think it would work. I think people would get too caught up in the small parts as well. So whilst it's fun for us to star spot, because I think that it would be such a big thing about the casting, and I also just think that there is something really sort of like simple about this film, and it, like I said, my blue lit sex scenes, big fan, which just it doesn't translate to now. It just doesn't.
No. I think a lot of it wouldn't really translate now, to be honest.
Yeah,
you wouldn't get the problematic scenes at all. They would just be excised from it.
Yeah, they would be taken out completely. And as much as the Sicilian scene is problematic, it's also probably my favourite scene in cinema history. Mm-hmm. So, like, just because of how well it's acted and directed and everything. So, and if they tried to do that now, but then change it, I just wouldn't work. I don't think it would work.
Yeah, that scene's not there for the sake of it. It's actually there to drive the story forward. It sort of raises the stakes, so you do kind of need that. Whether you agree with the way that it was actually executed or not, but I wasn't a pun, by the way. I didn't mean anything with the execution. But yes, I think it would be pretty poor actually doing it now.
Yeah, I think so too. I still think it would work.
Yeah. So, final question: who would you recommend this film to?
Vanessa's like, everyone with eyes.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Like everybody that hasn't seen it.
Now that you're bulk buying copies, then you're
handing them out. Yeah. I basically because honestly, if I do meet somebody and they say they've not seen it, I'm like, you need to watch it. It's like it'll change your life. It probably won't change their life, but like, I would. I can't imagine anybody not liking this unless they are really not. I suppose some people don't like violence or whatever, but like even my parents who are like in their 70s, my dad rewatched it recently and was like, oh, I've forgotten how good it was. Like, younger people, I think, young people into film would appreciate it. So yeah, I would literally recommend this to just about. I don't think there's anybody I wouldn't recommend this to. So yeah, but everybody, everyone with eyes, like Mary says. And even if you've not got eyes, you can put on the thing that explains what's happening. Yeah. Everybody should be able to watch this.
So are you going to provide Braille copies as well?
Yeah.
With the transcript? Covering all the bases.
Covering all the bases.
I think it's like, as I said, it's a date night movie. It's a movie with friends. It's with girlfriends and wine. It's a big it's just something for everyone without repeating what we've said. I think there is the sort of mix of genres and the different types of characters as well, I think, and all the different actors that are involved. Like, even if you're not necessarily a big movie fan, you maybe recognise James Gandolfini because you've watched The Sopranos or something like that. So there's just so much to it that, like, as Vanessa said, it's kind of impossible not to sit down and enjoy this.
Yeah. It would be the kind of film if somebody was saying, "Oh, I haven't seen anything from the 90s," I say, "Well, there's your starter for 10. Start with that."
It's a good, it'd be a massive red flag for me if somebody was like, "I hated that movie." I'd be like, "There's something wrong with you."
Cut out of your life.
yeah. Like when me and my husband started seeing one another, he had a copy of it, and I was like, "There's something here." But like if somebody really disliked, I mean, because I don't think I've ever spoken to. I mean, obviously not everybody loves it as much as me, but I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody that really dislikes this movie. So I would find it slightly red flaggy if somebody was like, "Yeah, I hated that." I'd be like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?"
Yeah, what specifically did you hate?
Like, I could understand if somebody said, "I really didn't like the racism, I really didn't like the violence," but if somebody just like hated the entire movie, I would be like, "There's something not right with you." Like, I don't think we can be friends.
That is us for today. We have had quite an extensive discussion about Tony Scott's True Romance. So, Vanessa, where can our listeners get more of your work online?
Well, I'm just a very amateur podcaster, so I am on the Movie Jewel podcast kind of probably every couple of months. So that's where we pick a topic and then we'll pick like a couple of movies to chat about around that topic. I am also on the so-called X-Files podcast, which is a very niche podcast about a 90s TV show, the X-Files, which comes out every fortnight. And not that long ago, me and my brother started a podcast called That's What I Call the 90s, and it's all about 90s movies because, as I explained, the 90s were the best. All of those podcasts are available on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm on Instagram. I've forgotten my name on Instagram. I think it's at Vanessa Cordner because at Vanessa Cordner. My email address is Vanessa White, which, John, I think you called me at the start, which is my maiden name, but I've actually been married for like 14, 15, I can't even remember, that's bad, isn't it?
Can't even remember how long you've been married.
14 years I've been married, but I couldn't be bothered changing my email address. It just felt like far too much hassle, so my email address is still my maiden name. But yeah, you can get me on Instagram. It's just so much hassle, isn't it? I'm also on Letterboxd, but yeah, so I just do a bit of podcast, and I just really love chatting about film, and I'll always give a shout out to the Final Girls Glasgow group that Mary's also already mentioned, because it's just fantastic. Made loads of friends through that, and it's just a dead supportive, fun group to be a part of. So if anybody is around the area, like if you're a female or femme, and you want to get involved in that, I would highly recommend seeking it out on Instagram's probably the best place to start, isn't it, Mary? Because it's just a fabulous community. So yeah,
perfect. With Moviescramble, you can find us on all the normal social media channels. Just have a wee search for Moviescramble. We're on pretty much all of them. We try to update content on them on a regular basis as well, but it can be a wee bit hit and miss at times, but that's down to all of us. That's not a dig at any one particular person or anything. You can also I wasn't even going to go there. I'm equally as bad getting things updated. We do have a website as well, moviescramble.co.uk, where we post reviews, previews, that kind of thing. So please check us out there as well. If you want to get in touch with us, obviously, as I said, get us on the socials, but you can also send us an email at podcast@moviescramble.co.uk. We will be continuing with our collab podcasts. We have another 6, I think, lined up. So we'll be recording and releasing them over the next couple of months, as well as our normal sort of content as well. I thought it was quite funny that you talked, Vanessa, about having an amateur podcast, and then you agreed to come on this amateur mess with us. So you must think yours more highly now. So but it was really good having you on the podcast. It was really good. So
no,
thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's really brightened up my week. As I said at the start, I've not had the best week. This is a very nice way to end the week. So thank you.
Oh,
I do have that effect, and people are brightening up people's week, so that's fair.
It's the hair. It's the hair.
It must be. Yeah. It's the hair and the humility, I think. It kind of works very nicely together. So it only remains to say from myself, cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.